Hello, everyone, and a very good morning. I hope all of you can hear me. Today, we are going to show you a few automation techniques that will help you make use of Zoho people in the best possible way. Very good morning again. I'm Aarti Elizabeth, and in today's session, I will be showing you how automation of all your important HR activities help you save both time and money. We also have here with me my colleague Ishwar, who will be giving you a short demo on setting up workflows, configuring approvals, and he will also be showing you how to use all the other automation tools that we have. Now, let me remind you here that you are in the listen only mode. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat window. That is the little question box that you can see on your screen, and we will be happy to answer them for you at the end of the session. Before we begin, let me just give you a small introduction about Zoho. Zoho, as many of you already know, has emerged as the leader in cloud services for small and medium businesses. We have been in the business of creating and handcrafting beautiful software for the last 17 years. We have a suite of wide apps for all your organizational needs. We have the sales and marketing apps, apps for productivity and collaboration, apps for finance, and of course, the HR apps, which includes Zoho Recruit and Zoho People. Now, before we begin, let me show you how some organizations still do their HR. They still have paper forms for new hire onboarding. They send emails back and forth for time off and leave applications. They still use manual methods and Excel sheets for the attendance. And this all leads to the HR department being loaded with requests, queries, and other requirements of the employees. All these activities are done manually. And if you notice, automation is nowhere to be seen. Time is wasted and the HR personnel are overloaded. According to recent research, with HR automation, HR staff can reduce the time they spend on administrative work by 40 to 50%. There is another study that also indicates that as a result of automation, the cost of HR administrative processes can be reduced by an average of 60%. Now think about the benefits of having 60% more productive work and 40% more time saving. And that is why we believe in automating your HR. With Zoho People, you can automate and streamline all your important HR activities, and your organization will grow as a whole. We give you automation that is so simple and easy to configure, which means you can do it all by yourself. The following are the most important HR activities that consume the most time when done manually. So that includes your new hire onboarding, time management, which includes your attendance, time offs, and your time sheets. Of course, internal HR requests, working with third-party systems, and managing employees when they are on the move. And that is why we have concentrated on automating these activities. Let's start with onboarding. I'm sure all of you know onboarding is the most important HR activity, and this ensures minimal attrition. Did you know that it takes a new hire only 90 days to decide if he wants to stay or leave the organization? The decision to stay with your company is made based on company material and the induction that is offered to him when he joins. Onboarding consists of numerous new joinee forms, salary approvals, IT system allocations, signing of contracts, and providing new hire training. Manually processing these requests can take up to 4 to 5 weeks. Let me show you why. Take a look at the manual flow of events in terms of onboarding. The HR personnel have to individually contact each and every department. For instance, the direct team and manager for salary approvals, employment contracts, and other reporting requirements, the induction and training team to make sure the new hire receives his induction from various departments and all other training that is planned for him, the IT team for assistance with hardware, access permissions, and other asset allocations, and of course, the administrative team for his ID cards, access cards, transportation, and other company benefits. Once the information is passed on, more likely through emails or maybe in smaller organizations through word of mouth, the respective teams will ensure that the requirements of the new joinee is fulfilled. Contracts will be finalized, assets will be purchased, and the benefits will be worked upon. And finally, the onboarding is complete. This is a long process with me just saying it, and only if it is as easy as it sounds. In reality, it is all a scrambled process, and that is why it takes close to 4 weeks to complete onboarding. So, how do we reduce the time spent by the HR and other teams for onboarding? With automation, structured workflows that trigger multiple actions can be created. For instance, all your HR has to do is fill up a new joinee form in Zoho People, and automatically requests will be sent out to the respective teams. She need not contact each team individually. Once the team receives the request, the requirements are processed well within the time for the new hires. Now, this in turn increases job satisfaction and employee performance. How would you generally apply for casual leave or time off? Through emails? Or word of mouth, maybe? Did you know that some companies even use sticky notes? So, what if your manager approval is required? Mails will be sent back and forth. And the HR? Well, the HR will be spending time backtracking the leave and the approval. So, what about attendance then? Let's say you have employees all around the globe. Various devices may be used to mark attendance. How will you ensure that their time has been checked in? How will you ensure consistency? And that is exactly why 50% of global HR workforce prefer automated time off and leave management today. In Zoho People, everything from application, approvals, and HR records are all taken care of through automation. An employee can simply log into his Zoho People portal and apply for leave or avail time off, and that too directly on the wall. Approvals from the respective manager can be configured and given directly and will appear in his feeds. The HR can easily get all the reports by just accessing the report sheet. Now, this is how Zoho People will typically look, the product. Take a look here at how the manager Charles Stones has approved the casual leave of his subordinate, Jasmine, directly on the wall. It doesn't just stop there. He also informs another employee of Jasmine's absence and plans work accordingly. This way, the leave is recorded, approvals are provided, and the HR is always in the loop. Zoho People's Attendance is the most user-friendly attendance management system that is available. All your employee needs to do is log into the portal and just check in. In case an external system is used to log time, let's say a biometric device or an ID card scanner, you can automatically import the attendance data and track records from here. And the best part is that you can set IP restrictions to ensure control over where your employee marks his attendance from. Many organizations use ID cards and biometric systems for attendance management. With Zoho People, you can easily integrate with your biometric device using a simple API. Having a central attendance system ensures better control over your employees' time and effective allocation of resources. Time is too precious to be wasted in looking for information that could easily be tracked. Automation tools in Zoho People help in tracking employees' time, calculating time worked, running it through approvals, and sending it to payroll for processing and client billing. You can ensure that the timesheet that is submitted goes through not just multiple but also multi levels of approval, and it can be configured based on criteria as well. Now, what's great about the Zoho People Time Tracker is that when a project is added, you can associate a client from the accounts and contacts module of your Zoho CRM. Yes, we work hand in hand with Zoho CRM. Now, this is how a project is created. Simply enter the name of the project, choose a client from the list that you have configured or from your Zoho CRM and assign it to your employee. Once the time is logged in and the timesheets are created, if configured, the timesheets will go for approval. Approval, as you can see here, is multi-level. As an organization grows, there is an increase in the number of internal requests to the HR. This challenges greatly an HR's time and resources. If an HR spends most of her time looking through employee requests and continuously answering employee queries, she might end up doing nothing else but just that. Every employee has different requirements. Some travel and have to apply for travel requests and subsequently submit expense reports. Others may contact the HR constantly to update their employee database for reallocation, completed training, change department. Well, the list can just go on and on. Managing hundreds of changing employee data and requests can seriously be a tedious process. That is why with Zoho People, we let your employees edit their personal information directly on the wall. They can apply for training, apply for travel, update personal details, and we also provide access to the time off, attendance, and the timesheet reports. For example, when your employee applies for an internal training directly on the HR system, the HR can create a workflow to automatically add the training details to the employee form when it is completed. This way, the employee is empowered and the HR burden is reduced tremendously. So, what is a webhook? We all know what an API does. An API, which is the application programming interface, has always been the most preferred means of integration between two systems. For instance, maybe an HR software and a payroll system. This is most convenient when data needs to be exchanged every time a requirement arises. However, what if instant notifications need to be sent and received the very second they are triggered? Well, that's precisely what a webhook does. With Zoho People, you can create a webhook based on different criteria without writing a single line of code. For example, an employee resigns and you need to make sure that he no longer has access to his account. Now, instead of deleting the user from the system, you can just change the status to resigned and an API will be invoked to restrict system access. When an employee checks in his attendance and uses a form instead of the biometric system, you can ensure that it is automatically changed in the employee form. You can also integrate with third-party systems using webhooks. Let me show you this with an example. Let's say a user submits a travel expense record through a form in Zoho People. A notification will be instantly sent to the accounting system using a webhook. And this is done by invoking an API. Now, once this is done, the travel expense will be automatically reimbursed to the user. Now, alternatively, instead of using a webhook, an API could be used if the payments are only periodic in nature and are not instant. Since the world is on the move and many HRs nowadays want to keep a check and manage their employees from anywhere in the world, we have the Zoho People mobile app. Find, connect, and collaborate with your colleagues on the go with a fully functional mobile employee directory. You can check in and check out your attendance, apply for leave or time off, fill up your timesheets, and all this can be done just through your mobile phone. And don't worry, you can set IP restrictions to ensure control over where and when your employee clocks in from. The mobile app is available for both the iOS and the Android. So as I had previously said, this is how it will look on your mobile phones. You can check in and check out. You can do an employee search. You can log time for your timesheets. You can apply for your leave, vacation, or time off directly on your phone. Initially, HR management was just a system of record. Everything was done manually. Now, however, it has evolved from being just an ERP type system to a system which is entirely automated and can be used directly by your employees. In other words, it's a system of engagement. Now, this brings us to the end of the overview on automation. Ishwar here will now show you how you can configure approvals, create checklists and workflows based on the examples that I had already given to you in the presentation. Over to you, Ishwar.
Thank you, Aarti. That's a lovely introduction to our biggest asset, which is the automation in our HR systems. Hello, everyone. This is Ishwar, and I'm going to show you a short demo on how to configure your automation tools in Zoho People. To start with, as you can see on the screen, this is the page where any user would land up once they log into Zoho People. A user with minimum permissions can do almost every day-to-day activity from this page itself rather than going to different clicks, like posting a comment or sharing an idea to a department or a user, applying for a leave or time off, also adding a job and logging time for the timesheets. Okay, now once a user signs up for the organization, the first and the foremost thing that they want is to add users. For that, we're going to set up and we click on users. Okay, now in users, we have two kinds. One is an active user who would have access to Zoho People and can update their own details like leaves, time offs, timesheets, etc. Whereas we have non-users who do not have access to Zoho People, but the administrators can update the details. Now let me show you how to add the user first. For that, I click on the add button on the top right. And here you need to give just the four basic fields, which is the employee ID, first name, last name, and the email ID. Once this is done, you click on save, which triggers an email to the concerned email address for them to accept the invitation and join your account. Also, similarly, we can also add the non-users. But here we just need two details, which is the employee ID and the first name. Since the non-user is not going to have the access to Zoho People, we would not require the last name and the email ID. And we click on save. So once the user accepts your invitation, they would be listed under the login enable list, showing as active. Okay, so now once the user joins your account, you would obviously want all the onboarding process to be completed at the earliest. For that, I'll show you how to configure the checklist, which would trigger the emails and the tasks to the concerned team automatically. For that, I click on setup on the top and I click on checklist under automation. Okay, here by default, if you sign up for a new account, you would see new employee joins checklist, which is predefined. Here you can already see the task that's been provided, like place allocation for manager, enroll mail on benefit plans for HR department, laptop purchase to the purchasing team, allocate training programs to the training team, and order business cards and corporate credit cards to the finance and the office manager. However, if you want to edit this task, just move your mouse onto that task and click on the pencil button to edit. Once you click on that, you can edit the fields that is required. Like you can change the task name or give a different description, or also change the number of days that needs to be completed. And once that is done, you can either assign an owner, an individual owner, or assign an individual team, or a role, or a field from the form, which is a lookup. Once that is complete, the next part would be the message, which would be displayed on their emails, which would be triggered. Okay, the first part would be the from, which says that person performing this action, which means that this would be triggering an email from the person who is adding a new record for the employee. The two says people task owner, which would be the person whom we have tagged to, probably an individual, that can be a team, can be a role, or can be a lookup field. The next part would be the subject, where you can mention a gist about what you're going to request the user. And then you can either create your own template or choose a template which we have given. If you want to create your own template for the message, click on create template, and you can give your own body of the email. Once that is done, just click on save, and your checklist has been created. So you can go on adding more tasks into it as per your requirement. Okay, now we have configured the checklist. Now we need a medium which would trigger and check the checklist once a record is added. For that, we have the workflow. We click on workflow, and we add a workflow. Okay, here we choose a form name again, which is the employee form, and give a workflow name just for the identification purpose. And then we choose a trigger process. Here you would see overall 6 actions. There will be create action, there will be edit action, or create or edit. We have field update, we have approve, reject, and delete. These actions would mean that you can trigger a workflow as per your requirement. It can be either when we create a record, when we edit a record, or when it's been approved or rejected, or even when an individual field is updated, you can create a workflow. Okay, now since I'm going to trigger a checklist when a new record is created, I give a check on the create, and I move down. Here you would see again under actions, you would have mail alerts, checklists, webhooks, field updates. Since I've already created a checklist for the new join onboarding, I click on the folder button and I give a check on new employee joins. I click on associate and I click on save. So my webhook is created. So from now onwards, when an administrator adds an employee to his or her account, a workflow will be triggered with all the checklist and the task to be assigned to the owner. Okay, so now this is complete. The next, as per Aarti said, we need to create the workflows for the leaves, can be for expenses, reimbursements, etc. So let's start creating our approval. Okay, now approval would be very important when you want the employees to get an approval for the time offs, can be for leaves, for timesheet, which is very important for the payroll. We have reimbursements, we have expenses. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an approval configuration for any form. Okay, say for example, I'm going to give you an example for the leaves, but you can do the same for any other form as well. So let's click on add approval. Choose the form again, just like in workflow. I choose the leave form here. Again, I give the name of the approval. And I go down. I click to configure the approver. I click on configure approver. And now, as Aarti said, we do have multi and multiple level approvals. Okay, here, which means that you can configure up to 5 level of approvals and different stages as well. Like here, I choose reporting to 3 level. Then I choose the approver based on role, which is the HR. And also, I want the department head to be the approver. So I again click on the plus sign. and choose the department lead of login user. Okay, now once this is complete, again we configure the email template the way we did for the checklist. Here again, we have given a default template which you can use, or again, you can create your own templates and associate that. So once this is done, we click on save. Now once this has been saved, now you can rest assured that whenever any employee applies for a leave, this would trigger an email to the concerned teams to make sure that everything goes in process. Now let me show you an example. I go into the dashboard, I click on apply leave, I choose a leave type, say casual leave, choose the number of days I want to apply for the leave, and I give the reason. And once I click on apply leave, an email would be triggered to the concerned teams, probably the reporting manager 3 level would be one to the HR department and one to be to the department head of the login user. So they will receive an email as well as they can see a feed on their dashboard. So whichever feels comfortable, they can click on the link and approve the request. Okay, similarly, you can also, as I said before, you can configure approvals for your other forms as well. It can be completely your choice. The next would be the Webhooks, which is an integration and through which we can push data from Zoho people to any third-party software. Okay, to start with, we click on Setup and we click on Webhooks under Automation. Now, since it's a new account, we create a new webhook. I click on New Webhook here. Here again, I give the webhook name. There won't be any form to choose from. Let's say I'm going to create a webhook. So I give the name as Employee Designation. Okay, next, I give the description, the URL to notify, which is the API you need to give. Okay, say for example, the employee for designation can be you want to give an API to editor record. We have given the complete list in our help page. You can go through that. You can just take any API from here, fetch that, and you can copy paste that into the Zoho people. So once you give the API, you choose the method, whether you want to post the data or get the data. Once you choose that, we choose a form name from which I want to post the data. Okay, I choose the employee form since I want the employee designation to be posted in some other form. Okay, now once this is done, next comes in the fields that we want to map to one another. Okay, for that, under URL parameter, I click on append entity parameter. Okay, here I give the parameter name, and alongside that I choose the field name as well from the respective form. Once that is complete, you scroll down again, and again you can choose different fields as well. If you do not want just one field to be posted, you can choose individual fields all at one time. Okay, now we're going to append custom parameters, where we are going to give two important details. One, the data that we're going to post to the other software, and the auth token. Okay, auth token is a path through which the data will be transferred from Zoho people to the other software. Okay, you can find the auth token under your accounts. If you scroll up, on the right you would see your name where you log out usually. So if you click on that, you can go into my account and you get the auth token. Once that is complete, you can just refresh the URL. You would see the complete complete URL which is going to get posted, and we click on save. Okay, now once the webhook is created, again the medium for this to trigger would be the workflow, just the way we link or associated the checklist, we need to associate the webhook as well. Okay, now there would be few things which you might find difficult. The first one would be to configure approvals for your timesheet. If you go into time tracker, we have given a separate section where we can configure the approvals. You go into settings and you click on approvals here. Okay, so here this will be the same configuration page, but you will see this under time tracker. Okay, again here you can configure multiple and multi-level approvals depending upon your requirement. Okay, and just to give you guys a heads up that we are going to convert the time tracker to a form pretty soon. So once that is done, you can also do various customization as well with this. And that brings an end to our webinar regarding automation. If you have any questions, you can always post that into the question box that's there on the left hand side. And if you have any questions and if you need to schedule any demos on one-on-one session, you can always write into us at support@zohopeople.com and we will be happy to help you.